So another example of how they don't understand the character and put their own personal beliefs and whatever social views to really take hold of what's happening in a story rather than just honoring the character that already exists. Hey, what's up, Nerd Fam? This is your boy. Today, we're going to talk to you about Moon Knight. Now, I'm not like a huge Moon Knight fan, and I already know these shows are not really catered towards me, so I'm going to put that out there. The reason why I was interested in watching Moon Knight is because I heard that one of the writers, or at least I think the main writer, is going to be responsible for writing a Nova project. And Nova is one of my top 5 favorites. So I wanted to see how they used the source material, or didn't use the source material, to flesh out this type of story, because that would give me a key indicator of what they were going to do with Nova. And obviously, I'm not surprised they played hard and fast with the source material in a way which really was detrimental to the story. Now, once again, it doesn't have to be exactly like the source material, but when the source material offers a better alternative than what you just gave as far as consistency and giving legs to a story that will actually give a character meaning going forward, this is where I have to start going here. So let me start with the positives. Oscar Isaac and pretty much every actor that's in here does their job. Oscar Isaac is an amazing performer. We know that. Which is why I was happy to at least hear that he could be Mark Spector, because I know he could carry the whole multiple personality thing. Now, going directly into the shit. Because once again, acting positive, but then let's just go right into the shit. The personalities, right? They first tried to make this like Stephen Grant, or like they oriented it around Stephen Grant, right? Which was strange because obviously Mark Spector is the main. Mark Spector has all the backstory. Everything happens to him first, and Stephen Grant and anything else that comes after is just a derivative. But they almost made it seem like it was the opposite, and obviously it's because Stephen Grant, that's what apparently Stephen Grant thinks he is, which doesn't make any sense, seeing as how you learn later that Stephen Grant has been around Mark Spector, like in America and all that, since he was a kid. So continuity-wise, it doesn't make sense for him to believe all these things that are happening, even if he creates a whole new personality, because he wasn't in the UK, he was in Chicago, and he believes he's from... Stephen Grant has an English accent and believes he's from the UK. Whatever, right? This would have been better handled if, quite literally, you make the personalities and the personalities that he has are identities that he makes up, like they kind of do in the comics, and then eventually they become alternate personalities. You can do that, or they are alternate personalities, just like they also are in the comics. But then Mark is still the center point. You don't start with the rest of them, and the other personalities are used to solve different crimes. You could do that, because that was also something that he used. Like when it came to the Jake Lockley personality, that was meant for him to be in the criminal underworld. Stephen Grant was meant for him to go with the whole white collar crime. He created those things, but then eventually those personalities actually have a mind of their own, start developing. And it's because of his whole DID, his dissociative identity disorder. I believe that's what he has. Also, them kind of like throwing his Jewish heritage in the back was something that a lot of people were very scared of anyway, and they did it. They just threw it. They backhandedly showed, like, they showed, when his brother died, a whole bunch of people had yarmulkes on, even during the funeral. You saw, like, when he was a grown man for his mom, but honestly, him being Jewish is part of his origin. Hell, it was the trauma that he got from like a Nazi that was disguised as a rabbi trying to kill other Jews. That's where he like developed that, like, the trauma from. Now, because the timeliness, you don't have to necessarily say like World War II and Nazis, but you could still modernize this by having it be someone who is a killer and perhaps does have a certain view that makes them think of Jewish people as less. Maybe it's his grandparent, like a grandparent that went through World War II, and then they still had to deal with someone who maybe had some anti-Semitic views. You could still make that origin modernized. You could, without killing his brother, Randall, who is a person who really ties into his origin as a mercenary, and even later on becomes another character called Shadow Knight, which could have been cool. But either way, the main plot of this story, which was like, you know, between the avatars of gods, and trying to stop like cataclysmic events from happening, you know, kind of like the very stereotypical. It didn't have to be that way. I think if the first season was more like a Batman-esque solving crimes kind of thing, because that's kind of what it was in the comic at first, and he made the suit. Like, that suit was made of Kevlar and stuff like that, into showcasing, you know, his martial arts skills and his intelligence, and then going back and forth with what had happened, and maybe Khonshu not being this weird Venom symbiote-esque voice that we all can hear, but maybe it's just him talking to himself, and maybe we're wondering, is he actually crazy? Is there actually a god? And then at the end, revealing that there is a god there. And then eventually his powers growing and growing instead of him automatically being able to do all this crazy stuff, right? Also, the whole Mr. Knight thing with Stephen Grant was stupid, because in the comic, Mr. Knight is his own personality. It's not Stephen Grant's version of being the Fist of Khonshu. That was just weird, especially when Stephen Grant all of a sudden just knew how to fight at the end. That was just stupid. LAYLA. Now, they did what I hate the most, which is make these characters that are composite characters, that are, they say are original, but they are really just combined of multiple characters. So Arlene, who is supposed to be his love interest, the actual daughter of the archaeologist. The thing is, I read a lot of things before this to figure out why they made the changes they did. And it was because they felt like they didn't want to have pretty much somebody white being an archaeologist, knowing all this history, because they felt like it should be someone Egyptian. Newsflash, archaeologists usually aren't from the places where they know a lot of stuff about, right? And they said, okay, we're going to take Layla's story and, Arlene's story and put it on Layla, and then try to make her a badass and stuff like that. And then also make her the Scarlet Scarab later on, which was another Egyptian hero, which was, if you remember at the end, I'm not sure if you caught it, when the little girl was like, are you an Egyptian superhero? That very on the nose, that was just very strange. Either way, there's nothing wrong with having an original character like Layla, but that wasn't original. Let's just say Arlene still existed and was someone who was Mark's love interest. Wouldn't it have been creative to have Layla been like a character from his mercenary past who's helping him beat his first villain, which is Bushman, who also doesn't appear here? You want to hear why? Bushman, who was a mercenary and not his CO, which is what he said in the show, was a lead mercenary, comes from an African village, who the African village was messed up. He became an asshole because of that. Eventually kills Mark when he kills Arlene's father. Is his first real villain. The reason why they did not include him was because they said he was too similar to the MCU's Killmonger. Pretty much, he's black and has militaristic traits. That's it. Because if you look up their characters, they are not the same. MCU's Killmonger was already a bastardization of the regular Killmonger. But even those two, they literally have very little in common. Really? So, that's why you take away his first, most important villain that actually sets him on this path? And then obviously they do what they do to Harrow, because Harrow is not some Jim Jones type of character. He's really just like almost like a mad doctor, scientist type of character. It's not this. This whole thing was just a bastardization of this character and the lore. And not in a way where it actually makes it better. It's actually rather confusing. Like, even when they're in the afterlife, why would his personalities be there? I mean, that's like a physical manifestation from his brain. I mean, I remember when they had to balance his scales and this dude got thrown off the boat, Steven, and I go, now it's balanced. How could it be balanced if you're saying there was a whole other personality he didn't know about? It should still be unbalanced by your logic then. So much weird stuff they just left out. It was very strange, and yeah, I'm very worried for whatever they're gonna do with Nova, if this is what they're doing with it, where they're taking characters, making composite ones, and not even understanding the main characters and the main tenets of what make them who they are. Once again, not a super Moon Knight fan, but I understand. Like, I read the comics for him, And even though he's not my favorite, there's still some very interesting stuff with his character, and they left on the table here for what? For what? And now they're talking about they don't even know if there's going to be a season 2. So it's like they did all this stuff, and they don't even know what they want to do with the character in the future. Whatever. Let me know. Did you like this? If you did, tell me why, because we got to have a conversation and whatever. Enter the nerd.